Today I propose talking about what I call spatial exploration, an underlying element in my practice of live performances for my video installations. This goes back a long way, but a project for my MA graduation show at Middlesex University in London 2001 is one of its most overt manifestations, and I propose revisiting it now, this particular show. I was allocated a vast, empty, white rectangular space within the fine art building, about 40 foot long, 20 foot wide and 20 foot high, which I think is about 12 by 6 by 6 meters, with a corridor on the floor above along the top of one of its external sides. Immediately, it seemed obvious to me that this space was the artwork in itself, a self-enfolding site emanating a powerful presence. And in any case, I had no interest in adding more objects into the art world, still dominated, especially in the UK, by the assumption that art equals objects. The space was a palimpsest of traces, a rich matrix of absent presences, of former exhibitions, projects, habitations. The walls were flecked with droplets of paint and pockmarked with numerous little holes and blemishes left over from previous installations. The floor was stained by the imprint of paint tins and spillages. We had 8 weeks, and I spent about 300 hours inspecting and paying attention to every nook and cranny, the textures and blemishes, with great tenderness and care, using macro photography and drawing. And I was trying to catalogue its every detail. I started mapping the space slowly, sometimes feeling my way with my hands as if in the dark. I gridded the walls with lines of string, isolated stains on the floor with masking tape, privileged certain marks on the walls with perspex coverings. And I traced the textures of the surfaces in pencil with my eyes shut. I used a plumb line, a spirit level, a measuring tape. I put letraset numerals on the walls as if they were significant measurements, but they were in fact fictional, randomly chosen. Numbers do not need concrete entities in order to exist, but can obviously relate to objects and form relationships between matter and mind. By juxtaposing random numbers with the physicality of the space, I wanted to indicate the arbitrariness of the language of measurement and, by analogy, the instability of truth systems. I lowered the height of the entrance to 3 foot high in order to force visitors to stoop down to come in. I wanted them to slow down and pause and pay attention. Once inside the vast space, it seemed empty, with nothing in it at all but a little table with a few objects on it. And there was no focus because the artwork was already surrounding them. The aim was for visitors to embark on an odyssey of their own, to experience the work appearing and disappearing, and to find the hints I'd left for them, drawing attention to certain elements. This project was 8 months after my husband's death. He was a professor of civil engineering, and I remember his laboratory and experiments, such as triaxial and pore pressure tests, proved by measurements and numbers, so immutable and conclusive. He was my soulmate, so my sense of self and the cornerstones of my life collapsed in the instant of his sudden death. And I was still disorientated by grief during this project. So I was ordering and marking the space as a kind of keening and mapping, literally feeling and marking the way out of the confusion. But also, by subverting measurement and the language of numerals, I was expressing the instability of truth systems. But perhaps, well, not perhaps, definitely, the most important aspect of this project is that the work lay in the process itself and that the end result was a byproduct. These elements remain the underpinnings of my work generally on mourning, loss and memory. In my live performances for my video work, I depict a widow disorientated by grief, and she is still doing pointless, absurd activities, attempting to map her way by literally marking and reordering space, and these are metaphors for her plight.